Isaac isn't. Isaac is kind of sheepish. You might recall that when Abraham, when his wife Sarah dies, he tells the guy who's superintending his affairs, he says, look, I really think it's time for Isaac to get a wife to replace his mother. So what happens is that Eliezer goes up to Syria and finds a woman that he brings back, and the woman's name is Rebecca, and he brings her back, and we're told in the text in Genesis that Isaac takes her and goes into his mother's tent and sleeps with her, and Moses says, and so he was comforted for the death of his mother. Now, to me, that's not a man at his finest. First of all, people joke about, a woman might be fighting with her man, say, you just want me to, I'm not your mother. Well, I suppose Rebecca could have said, I'm not your mother. There are a number of things that I find unimpressive about Isaac personally. Number one, that he's 40 years old, and it took the death of his mother for someone else to go get a wife for him. I would have been urging to find a wife at about 15 or 16. I don't think I would have, I wouldn't have let so much time pass and then waiting for someone else to say, you need to get a woman. To me, he seems a rather passive, sheepish kind of guy. And not only do I not see that bellicosity, that militant side of him, I don't see it. So on the one hand, I tend to identify personally with a different kind of male, but there's different kinds of people in the world. Now you look here where Isaac, every time he bumps into people that are dissing him, he's kind of deferential. Okay. But even with a personality that doesn't contend, God contends for him, and we're told finally, if you'll look in verse 22, okay, why fight, So he goes to another place and he digs another well, and they didn't quarrel over it, so, well, praise the Lord, because the Lord has created wide spaces for us. Now, after a victory, after he experiences some relief from the pressures that attended his earthly trek, we're told in verse 25, we're told in verse 23 that he went from there to Beersheba. And what happens, the Lord appeared to him in the night and said, I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. And I will bless you and multiply your seed for the sake of Abraham, my servant. So, he's gone through something of an ordeal. I don't think it's been an easy stretch for this man. He's not the sort that is game to contend. I remember when I was a police officer, at the risk of being misunderstood, if I was dispatched to a hot call, fight in progress, gang in progress, something, a crisis, and it was code 3, lights and sirens, I was a happy camper. That's what I'm talking about. Better than just going from donut to donut. Yeah, get into something. Barry went with me on a ride along once when we were courting before we got married. And I said, I'll take you out on an afternoon shift. No worries on that. What can happen on a Sunday afternoon? Well, I'll tell you what can happen. A police chase right after lunch. And I was just so proud. There I am, the man, and it's a high-speed chase in the car, and she's sitting next to me kind of tense. And Barry wanted to talk. I said, son, you can't talk right now. I'm busy on the radio, looking at my computer, steering, going through traffic. What's that? Yeah, I kind of can't talk now. It's kind of in the zone, you know what I mean? And I was just so proud that I got to be that in front of my woman. Got the guy, had him in cuffs. Life doesn't get any better than that. So, it didn't really bother me for hot calls, but I don't think, Isaac had that constitution. And if you don't have that constitution, that's fine too. I was a firefighter for a while too. Most people are smart enough, if a building's on fire, to go out. What kind of idiot wants to go in? Most people are smart enough, if there's gunfire, let's get away from it. What kind of person wants to go to it? It's a little weird. So if you look at me as an oddity, listen, you're probably right. There's all kinds of people in the world. My point is Isaac wasn't that kind of person. He just wasn't. So he runs into things that are disorienting, that are disturbing, and he kind of bounces off of it. But finally he gets a breakthrough. And what will happen subsequent to that is he'll have some vision where we're told the Lord appears to him. And he says, I am the God. I mean, look, I'm the God of your father. Look, I'm with you. And I'm going to be with you, and I'm going to give you good success. And when he is kind of overwhelmed by that with his senses, I mean, he really feels it. He really gets it. He's going to turn around and he's going to build an altar. That if you look at his life again, there's frustration, there's breakthrough, happy, yay. And after it all, he's going to carve out some space where what he's going to do is build Mizbeach in Hebrew, an altar. And what he's going to do is worship the Lord. Now, what I want to do is explore with you the particulars of that vision. Never mind the journey leading up to it. I want you to note how God turns up in a vision. Some people, understandably, don't fancy experiential religion. Some might prefer a church where, there's not a lot of talk or energy about the gifts of the Holy Spirit or miracles, and we can believe God, where it's more emotive. Some prefer, well, I really like my reverend, where we open up the Bible, let's look at the Hebrew and the Greek, and the house is noted for Bible teaching, not for experiential kind of energy. Some churches place more of a premium on God is with us now to move, to do. Others just are not comfortable with that at all. But I think it's fair to say when you look at the Bible, religion is there is an experiential edge to it. Isaac has a vision. He sees God, and when he hears the voice, something personal that grips him, then he turns around and is going to become a worshiper. I mean, it could be said he's less that until that. Something happens in our life. I mean, we're on a certain trajectory in life, and then something happens where we have some kind of encounter with the Lord, and things are different afterward. It just changes us. I never thought for a minute to become a minister of the gospel. I certainly wasn't the kind of guy that would depart from my money with ease and give it away in a tithe on a weekly basis. I mean, something happened. There's some kind of transition. It's usually an experience of a sort that precipitates that. Well, just for now, I want you to note how God shows up in a vision. And here's the verse. What I'm interested in, the Lord appeared to him at night and said, I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you, and I will bless you, and I will multiply your seed. Your seed is your offspring. It's nature. We want to have a family. We want our children to be successful. A woman was showing me pictures of her little girl growing up. Now I remember today, and I remember the little girl when she was a little baby. There's a lot of hopes and dreams riding on that child. We want our children. She's going to want that little girl to find love. She's going to want that person to find a good man who's going to take care of her. And the parents that raised her, they're going to want to become grandparents. Now, for me, you know what my definition of grandparent is? It's God's gift to us for not killing our own. Now, I raised boys. You know, I threatened to take them out back and shoot them and what have you. You know, boys, whatever. You know, you know, you want to look at your children and your children's children. You want generativity. Well, here, the Lord appears to him. I'm with you. And what I'm going to do is go with you and bless you and bless your children. You're going to have success. After which, we're told, in the aftermath of that, this wasn't some sermon that Isaac heard when he went to a synagogue or a church. Isaac's there getting bounced around in life. And as he's out there making his journey from the womb to the tomb, getting bounced around, the Lord shows up and says, look, you know, we're going to get through this. I don't know if you've ever tried to thread a needle, as in sewing. It can get frustrating. You know, it's hard to get. You just got to stay with it. Stay with it. You're going to thread that thing. You know, it's Isaac's wrestling with it. The Lord says, look, it's going to happen for you. After that, what he does is he builds an altar. He has a vision, something experiential that touches him visually, emotionally, sensually. It says, and the Lord appeared to him, a flash of light, I don't know. And the Lord said to him, I am with you. I mean, I don't know if it was thunder. When he said, the Lord said to me, I don't know if he heard a voice that made the cones in his ears vibrate. If it's an actual literal voice or just something other than that. But the man is touched by it. He says, the Lord appeared to him. It was something sensual, not sexual, but it's the senses. There's vision, there's sound. And it's something that gets into his being. And we're told here the Lord said to him, do not be afraid. Now, I don't know about you. There's things in life that prompt me on occasion to be afraid. I have concerns on occasion because I have dreams. There are things that I shoot for in life, and the outcome is it's uncertain. I happen to be vexed with this dream big kind of thing. And there's obstacles in front of me. You've heard me to say, I go back and forth to England. I'm just on the cusp of finishing a PhD at Cambridge University, one of the hardest schools in the world. I just got a new supervisor, and he's looking at my research. I sent him 150 pages. And you know, the supervisor that was with me for years retired. So he's new, he's looking at it, doesn't know what it is. He can kick it back. People say, well, Seifer, when are you graduating? Well, the way it goes at Cambridge is I don't move forward until he moves me forward. You know, he has to sign off on me, copacetic. And what happens, it's all riding on that. That's kind of where it is. And I'll know in a week. But it has me antsy. Beyond that, or I should say in conjunction with that, Tim Burke, the head of the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University, I was in touch with him, and there's an opportunity for me to go there as a visiting scholar. And I'll know whether that materializes early next year. My plan would be to teach here at CFNI on Monday morning and then fly to New England. And I'd be in Cambridge, Massachusetts, the other Cambridge, at Harvard on Monday night, Tuesday night, and Wednesday night, and fly back here Thursday night. And then teach Friday morning. Barry would teach my Wednesday classes here at the college. And then be the rabbi and cycle. I'll know about that. So for me, it's aspirational that I have the opportunity to go there as a research scholar. For me, I'll fill out the paperwork early next year. The head of the institute at Cambridge invited me to come on after that to serve as a scholar there on a 3-year contract. And now I couldn't do that like I am now. I have to go there and be there for the semesters. At Cambridge, there's 3 8-week semesters. I'd have to be there for that, but I could be there for 10 days, come back here for 6 days, go. There's ways that I can go back and forth and do it just to do it. And really what I'm trying to do is build out my research model as a scientist, and so I'm excited about that, if I can pull it off. My point to say is I live in a world, and maybe I shouldn't. Maybe men my age would be better if they didn't, if they just settled down. But for me, I live in the world of dream stuff, reaching over the horizon, throwing the dice against the uncertainties. You don't know what you're going to find on the other side. I live in a world of ambition, of striving, of energy. And so you're uneasy because you don't know how everything's going to turn out. But you learn to kind of follow the voice and see where it leads you. Speaking of which, the reason why we're here right now, when I walk around in this building, I just love the sight of it. I love the smell of it. When I first told people about this building and said, come and look at it, you probably didn't like the sight of it or the smell of it. It hadn't been used for the longest. It was kind of dumpy and and the way it happened, it's not like there was a building, a sign in front of the building. Anybody want to lease or buy this thing? No, I just went up to the owner one day and said, listen, why don't you get into business with me, and I want that building. He wasn't looking for it, but I just kind of felt an unction. And then I said, look, no hurry. We talked about no hurry. I don't want no pressure. And then some months later, it came back. The reason why we're sitting here right now is someone had an unction 8 months ago. I mean, it's a crazy world. To dare to dream, to reach over the horizon. Not all of life is like that, but there's something about the faith walk that's like that. And my point here is this guy Isaac is on his own in the world, a precarious world, following God, people around him a lot bigger and stronger. He doesn't have a lot of resources. The Lord shows up, and he says, I'm with you. Do not be afraid. He goes on to say in this promise, I'm going to bless you, and I'm going to multiply your seed. I'm going to bless you. That we will pray at the end of every service. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. What you want is God's blessings in your life. God's blessing in your life will get you where nowhere else can get you. Nowhere else can get you. There's an offering plate that's passed around in a church. You want to put a tithe in there. Look, you could probably use that $100 somewhere else in your life, in your family. There's probably a bill tray somewhere that really needs the attention of that $100 bill. But if you have God's blessing on your life, then there's more $100 bills that you're going to find. If you don't have God's blessing on your life, that $100 bills ain't going to do you any good at the end of the day. Because and people that do sacrifice unto the Lord, they build an altar and they sacrifice on it. If Isaac builds an altar and he sacrifices, he's a herdsman. He takes his best livestock and he slaughters it. Here, God, take it. Now, farmers usually, and ranchers, what they do with their best livestock is they breed with it. They don't kill it. If you look in the book of Malachi, God casts aspersions. The temple is finally rebuilt. And God says, you're bringing me the lame and the blind. That's patently offensive. He says, you should give your best in the house of God. Here the farmer says, look, that lamb's going to die anyway. Here, I'll just go give it to Jehovah on the altar. He says, God says, I'm offended by that. That's not the way the game is played. Well, I'm sure that, Isaac had other things to do with his breeding stock than slaughter it up and make it go up in smoke. But there's a sense in which He believes, God says, I'm going to bless you and multiply your seed. Subsequent to which, we're told here, he built an altar and called on the name of the Lord. Now, I'm not suggesting that people go out and actually build literal altars. If you ask the question, okay, Seif, what does this mean by application? Bring this down to earth, Jeffrey. I mean, how can this apply to us today? What's this thing about building an altar? The way I look at it, there's certain disciplines that I build into my life. It's like building an altar. It's like deciding to go to the house of God. And you know, it's a decision that I make. There's 168 hours in a week, and what I do, it's not, well, what do I feel like doing this week? It's do it. And it might sound, well, that's self-serving for you, Jeffrey, because, I mean, you're the rabbi, you're the reverend here. And so if people are going to come, you know, you're going to feel better about it to see more people here than less. And so, you know, you can just stay. But even if I'm not speaking somewhere, next weekend, I'll be speaking on Saturday morning at Beth Yeshua congregation in Fort Worth. And Sunday morning, I'm speaking at a church in Dallas. Now, if I'm not ministering at a church somewhere, last weekend, Barry and I were invited to go minister up in Indiana, north of Indianapolis. We flew into Fort Wayne. Now, I'll get invited to go minister in churches on a Sunday, but if I'm not ministering somewhere, Barry and I will visit a church right down the street from where I live. Because I don't think as a man it's sufficient for me just to be the rabbi and the reverend. I need to be fed too. And what happens, you know, Barry and I, when we go, we're faithful to a Sunday school there. It's a sweet little old lady who's never been to seminary that leads the Bible study group. And I'm just there, not the professor, the doctor, the big shot. I'm just there, well, thank you, Carol, that was insightful or whatever. And, you know, I try not to stick my chest out and be the big shot. On Wednesday mornings at 6 o'clock, right around the corner from where I live, there's a men's Bible study breakfast. And the pastor who leads it isn't a seminary graduate guy. He's real smart. He's sharp. And what happens is, you know, I'll go there and have a breakfast with the men and eat. In other words, I think that it's important to build altars, places where we go and worship the Lord. Now, for me, this is my principal home, because I understand that I was called. When the Lord called me into ministry, it was within this Messianic Jewish Christian kind of world. It's a strange kind of space for someone to observe because it's different. Some people say, wait a minute, this is too Jewish to be Christian, a place like this. Or it's too Christian to really be Jewish. Jewish people will say to a guy like me, listen, you might want to look like you're Jewish, but you believe in Jesus. So the truth of the matter is you're really too Christian to really be Jewish. Jewish person will say that. And a Christian person can look at me and say, okay, you went to seminary and everything, but look, you're too Jewish to be a Christian. You know, something, you're too Christian to be a Jew, or you're too Jewish to be a Christian. They're kind of like this odd duck. There's a sense that a guy like me wants to have citizenship in both worlds somehow. And the net result is you wind up having citizenship in neither. There's a sense in which it's a lonely kind of space. But the Lord called me into this kind of ministry. It's kind of like mission work. You know, I think before there ever were Catholics and Baptists and Protestants and all that, when I look at the first century Jesus movement, it looked like this. Jewish people that were turned on to Jesus and non-Jewish people that were attracted to the movement, and that was early Christianity. Jesus was a Jew. His name was Yeshua. You know, his mother wasn't the Virgin Mary. I mean, her name was Mariam. It's a Hebrew name. Jesus' name wasn't Jesus, it was Yeshua. You know, Christmas is coming. Jesus wasn't born in Bethlehem. He was born in Beit Lechem. Jesus was a Jew. He went around speaking to Jewish people in the Jewish language, in the Jewish homeland, from the Jewish scriptures about a Jewish concept, Messiah. Some Jews accepted him and some Jews didn't. For me, strange old me kind of wants to build this kind of altar. You know, I had a call of God on my life, and I said, listen, what I want to do is camp proximate to this, to retell this ancient story and build there an altar. I think every one of us needs to have some kind of experience with the Lord and some kind of sense of where we're supposed to build our altar. I remember how I got into ministry. I don't want to ramble too long. That I was part of this Messianic Jewish congregation in Chicago, and there was a snow there, and it was a blizzard, but it was time for service, and I didn't have a car. I was a janitor at the time. I wasn't even a particularly successful janitor. I didn't have a car. I took the rail, and time to go to church, time to go to service. Okay, so what happens is I go, and I take the rail, get off, and then go to the bus stop, and then the bus picks me up, and then I go to where I need to go, and I walk 2 or 3 blocks to where I need to go, and I go ring the doorbell. This was, the congregational leader lived above the space, and the worship space was a little smaller than this, was underneath. And so I rang the bell, and the leader's wife said, Vi, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I came for services. And she said, Jeff, look at the parking lot. I turned around. I waited, I waddled through snow that was up to my waist to get there. Most people would be smart enough to realize, well, probably church is canceled. And you wouldn't think the less of anyone for it. Never even occurred to me. And what happened is he said, oh, it's canceled. I said, okay, I'm sorry, I should have known, and I turned around and left. Now what happened is the minister there was known to be a little grumpy. In fact, he was known to be grumpy. But so he tells me the story later. He gets mad at his wife. Honey, who was that? Oh, well, Jeff came for services, but I told him the services were canceled. He says, did you see the weather out there? Why didn't you invite him in for coffee or something? He fussed a little, but he remembered, who is this guy that's crazy enough to do that? Now, what happened is when I announced sometime after, I went to a church service, not a messianic thing, and I'm sitting in the back and someone's teaching. I don't remember the name of the church, the name of the message. I don't remember the name of the guy that was speaking. But I remember the Lord kind of spoke to me, and we were praying, and the Lord kind of said, listen, Jeffrey, that's what you're going to do. Do that. It was what we call being called into the ministry. When I went and told him, I feel called into the ministry, what I had in him was a friend. Now, because everybody knew he was mean, all of a sudden when he starts talking, I know this guy, Seif, I'm telling you, he feels called into the ministry. Listen, I got a job right away. And usually you have to find a way to pay to go to Bible college. He found the money for me. And then after you go to Bible college, you feel called into the ministry. Well, you got to go around for 2 or 3 years and speak in different churches and raise support. They just gave me a salary. But the problem is I didn't have a car. No problem. They got me a new car. In other words, I think what contributed to it is they saw a guy who seemed to really build an altar. Here's a guy, he's crazy. There's a call, and I built the altar. And there's a way that it pays dividends. I think all of us need to build an altar. It's a place where we give unto the Lord. It doesn't necessarily have to be money always. Someone said, Syfe, you just want me for my money. I said, that's not true. I want you for other things as well. I'm joking on that. But you know what? If you look at this,